All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the D-Pat Discourse. I'm Brad Davis, and we're gonna be talking about the PlayStation 5 reveal. It was very anticipated. It was hyped for a long time. It got delayed due to unfortunate events, but everybody was still really hyped for it, and it was pretty good, I would say. It definitely, I would say, lived up to at least my hype. You know, I wouldn't say that it went over what I expected, but it definitely matched up with what I expected, and I'm really pumped for the PlayStation 5. All right, to start things off, Sony showed off Grand Theft Auto 5, and this was really weird to me because I, expected there to be new games shown during this event, and I was wondering why are they showing a game that's, believe it or not, almost a decade old now. But then it was announced that the game is going to come to the PS5 in 2021, I believe, and then it made sense. It's pretty amazing considering that the game came out for the PS3 and the 360, and people are still playing it now that we're getting into the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. It just shows how well the game is doing. Rockstar is still getting a ton of money from the game, and people still want to play it, so why stop it, especially when these new consoles coming out have backwards compatibility. But it does seem as if this update that's coming soon for Grand Theft Auto 5 will be made with the PS5 and Xbox Series X in mind. So that will be a big improvement for a lot of people. So, that was kind of weird. I wasn't expecting them to start the show off with an old game, but again, the game is big, so I understand why they decided to start off that way. Now on to the true meat and potatoes of their conference, the games. I'm not gonna talk about each and every game, but I will talk about the games that I was very pumped for the most out of the event. Gran Turismo 7, hyped for that. As you guys know, I'm a big Gran Turismo fan, at least when it comes to the series during the PS1 and the PS2 days. I spent more than 100 hours playing Gran Turismo 3, so seeing that there will be a Gran Turismo game, hopefully during the early stage of the PS5, hopefully during the first or second year of the PS5, that's really great. Gran Turismo hasn't been really exciting these past 3 to 4 years or so. The PS3 generation was very rough for the series, and Gran Turismo Sport, it's a solid game, but when I think of just how good Gran Turismo used to be, Gran Turismo Sport just doesn't match that, in my opinion. So hopefully Gran Turismo 7 will be a pretty big comeback for the series, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it is and how well it does, and how people, especially big Gran Turismo fans like me that have been playing Gran Turismo since the very first one on PS1, how we will react to it. Now another big game that they showed off was Spider-Man Miles Morales. At first I thought the game would be kind of like a add-on to the Spider-Man game for the PS4, but apparently it's a standalone title, kind of like a spin-off. So that's great news. I'm really pumped for that. Spider-Man for the PS4 was a great game, and while it doesn't seem as if Spider-Man for this Spider-Man game for the PS5 is a true next-gen Spider-Man game, just the fact that we're getting more Spider-Man alongside the improvements of the PS5, that will be enough for me, especially during the first year of the system. So this game is going to come out holiday 2020, at least that's the date that's been set for the game so far. It might be delayed, but if this game is going to come out during a launch period of the PS5, then that's going to be great, and I'm pretty sure that this game is going to do really well. The Spider-Man movie was, in my opinion, probably top 10, I would even put it top 5 best movies of the 2010s, and or 20 teens, I should say, and a game that matches that character and just the overall style will be great. But it does seem as if this will match more of the Spider-Man style that we saw in the PS4 game. But again, just more Spider-Man with Miles Morales, that's really exciting for me, and I'm pumped to see what or how the game will play on the PS5, since it should be a pretty fun and exciting experience on the system, especially when the console is new. On top of that, And this is the game that I would say impressed me the most out of any game that they showed during the conference. Ratchet and Clank, the new Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that game to me showed off the power of the PS5 the most. And it's funny because a lot of people aren't talking about that game, and I think a big reason for that is because Ratchet and Clank is kind of a cartoony game. You know, it's not a game that you think of when you think of next-gen power. When you think of next-gen power, you think of really realistic looking games, and Ratchet and Clank doesn't really fit that. But again, when you look at just what the game is doing with the rifts and how smooth the transition is when the portals go in and out, it's just like, yeah, this is only possible on next-gen consoles. You know, this wouldn't be possible on the PS4 or the Xbox One because there would have to be too much loading behind the scenes for the smooth transitions between the rifts and the portals to work and flow smoothly like it did in the video that we saw during that conference. So that to me was like the biggest improvement, the biggest thing that showed off the power of the PS5. And again, it seems as if a lot of people just aren't talking about it because it's not a realistic looking game. But again, when you look at just the smooth transitions, just all the effects on the screen that are happening at the same time, on top of those smooth transitions, like I said before, between rifts and portals, like that's just amazing. And it does seem as if this game isn't going to be a launch game because there wasn't a date set for it. But I really hope that that Ratchet and Clank will release sometime in 2021 at the latest, because I really want to play this game, because I truly do feel that this game shows off the power of the PS5, and it does so in more than just improved graphics. I mean, switching between those pros and those rifts, you know, that affects the game as a whole. You know, that's not just graphics, that's gameplay on top of that. That's just a completely different experience that, you know, we haven't had for 3D platformers, and I want to, you know, try that out. I'm a big platformer fan. I love platformers. So if Ratchet and Clank can come back with that gameplay element, then I'm all for it, because it looks really mind-blowing and really fun. And again, it will be cool to see platformers come back during this upcoming generation, because I would say that the Xbox One and PS4 generation were far more about, you know, multiplayer shooters and the realistic and dark single-player story-focused games. And I would like to see, you know, just more color in games, especially, you know, during these times that we live in that are really depressing. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody would say that 2020 hasn't gone the way that we thought it would before the year started. And, you know, just having just a wide variety of games of different styles, especially in the AAA space, would be really great. So if a Ratchet and Clank game could start the trend for that, then that would be great. And I'm looking forward to see more of the game, especially gameplay, because that game looks amazing to me. And honorable mention too is Horizon 2, Horizon Zero Dawn for the PS4. Many will agree that was one of the best games for the PS4. So just having the confirmation that there will be a sequel is really good, and that excites many people. So we'll see how the game does when the PS5 releases, you know, whether or not the game will really make use of the PS5's power. You know, we didn't see that much of Horizon 2 during the conference, but I'm pretty sure that it will. You know, this is a game that's the sequel of one of the best looking PS4 games. So I do not see how Horizon 2 can't be one of the best looking PS5 games, at least during the period that it launches, you know, since I'm pretty sure the game will come out during the first half of the PS5's life, and that there'll be better looking games during the second half of the PS5's life. But I definitely think that during the time that it releases, that it will be a really mind-blowing game in terms of graphics. So looking forward to seeing that too. Now on to the console itself. I was really, well, I really wouldn't say excited, but I was curious as to how the console will look. And a big reason for that was due to the controller. The DualSense controller is such a pretty big difference from the previous controllers for the previous PlayStation consoles. You know, if you look at the DualShock 4, DualShock 3, DualShock 2, and the original DualShock, they all follow the same style. The DualShock 4 was the most different controller out of the bunch, but that didn't really stray away from the style of the previous DualShocks. Now the DualSense, is, when you look at it, it's like, wow, okay, now this is definitely different from the previous PlayStation controllers. And as I said in a previous video, it looks more comfortable, it's bigger, has wider handles, so it looks like it will definitely fit far better in my hands than the DualShock 4 did. And from there I said, okay, if the controller looks like this, it's not black, it's two-tone. If the controller looks like this, then how will the PS5 look? And they showed it off during the conference. And I will personally say that I don't think that the PS5 is ugly, but I don't think that the console looks good either. It's a really unique design, and it kind of reminds me of those fan-made concepts that you would see, right when the next gen console rumors would hit online. During previous gens, we would see a lot of console designs made by fans about how the PS3 or the PS4 would look. And the PS5 design really reminds me of that. It doesn't look like an official design, to be honest. It has, curves at the top, and it's just a really strange design. But again, it kind of had to be a unique design, especially in comparison to the predecessors, because of what's going on inside the system. You can't put all that stuff inside the system and make it look like the PS4 did. It has to be a really unique design to fit all that in and keep it cooled down. And it's similar to the Xbox Series X in that the Xbox Series X doesn't look like the Xbox One X. The Xbox One X is a pretty solid looking console in terms of overall looks. And the Xbox One X will I believe, stand the test of time in terms of its design. If you look at the Xbox One X 10 years from now, it will more likely still look like a sharp and presentable looking console. Now, I can't say the same for the Xbox Series X or the PS5, because it's just both designs are so unique that, they just really stick out from the bunch. And in terms of the PS5 design, I do feel that we'll see new versions in the future of the PS5 in terms of its design, different colors, and possibly a slimmer version, especially since they also revealed that there will be a digital edition of the PS5, and this version doesn't have a disc drive. And this version, to me, looks better than the PS5 with the disc drive, because that disc drive just sticks out, and it's like, you have the curve at the top, and then it slims down, and then you have like the hump on the side, and it just doesn't look right. It's not symmetrical. Now, the digital edition of the PS5, the all-digital PS5, is definitely, symmetrical. Almost reminds me of the shape of the original Xbox 360 when you stood it vertically. So it's, that definitely looks better to me. And I'll be getting that version because I'm already all digital. I don't need a disc drive for the PS5, especially since I play my 4K Blu-rays on my Xbox, and the Xbox Series X will have a disc drive there. So, I don't need to spend the extra amount of money for the PS5 model with a disc drive on it, when I could save, money for the digital-only version. Now, in terms of that too, we have two models of the PS5 coming out during its launch. So the question is, what will the price be? The price wasn't announced during the conference, but this makes things far more interesting, in my opinion, in terms of the next-gen launch, because we've known for months now that Microsoft is planning a second version of the Xbox to launch alongside the Xbox Series X, and that this version will be a cheaper option for people that, might not have a 4K TV, or might not want to, really keep up with the latest and greatest in terms of graphics and technology. The system itself will still have the benefits of the solid state drive, but in terms of graphics, the graphics won't be 4K. This will target more than likely 1080p at a solid frame rate. So for people that want a console like that, they have the option to get that. And I thought that, there'll just be that, and then just one model of the PS5, and that will be it in terms of the competition. So people will be able to get the lower model of the Xbox if they don't have the money for the base PS5 or the Xbox Series X. Now, what this digital edition does is give a cheaper option, and I'm wondering how much it will be in comparison to the PS5 with a disc drive. I think it will be either $50 cheaper or $100 cheaper. We'll see how it plays out, but if it's $100 cheaper, then that will be pretty big. And I know that taking out the disc drive doesn't mean an automatic reduction of $100 from the price, but when you put into factor that this is a digital edition, and that if you're getting this edition, then you more likely will be sucked into Sony's ecosystem in terms of their digital content. Sony will definitely make up the money when it comes to the price of that digital edition, that price being cheaper. They'll definitely make up the money because a lot of people that will get that edition will only have the option of buying content within Sony's ecosystem. And therefore Sony is getting more money from these people. And therefore the console being cheaper, doesn't really mean much to Sony because they know that they'll get more money in the future from the people that buy that console. They'll make up the money, within a year or two, more than likely, from the majority of the users that buy that console due to those users being heavy digital content people. So again, it's interesting to see how this will play out in terms of price. I definitely, now it seems all but confirmed that Microsoft will have two models of the Xbox coming out in 2020. I would say that it was still a rumor since Microsoft hasn't confirmed it, but there was a lot of people talking about there being two Xbox models, and I think that now that there'll be two SKUs of the PS5, that pretty much sets it up for Microsoft to have to release the Xbox Lockhart in order to compete with the PS5 in terms of price. So if we see a range of consoles being $300 all the way up to $500, then that will be pretty interesting, and that would make things or make the transition to these new consoles very easy for a lot of people, because that $300 price range is very appealing to gamers that aren't really that even, that much into gaming, gamers that aren't the hardcore user base. So if that can happen, then it will be a really interesting transition. And I think the sales for all of the consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox, both models of both of those new consoles, I do feel that they'll do well, at least during the first year or so, because that you're giving people options, and more options means more people being attracted to what you provide. So it's going to be a fun time and a real interesting time for a lot of people, because it's just very different from what we saw back in 2013 with the Xbox One and the PS4. When those consoles launched, you can only buy one version of the console. And with the Xbox One, that was even worse because you were forced to buy Kinect, even if you weren't interested in Kinect. So now, we're getting more options, and I think that, people will at least be interested in buying the consoles this time around. More people will, and I say interested because, we don't know what's going to happen during the year. A lot of people are unfortunately in a really rough spot due to what COVID-19 has done to a lot of jobs, and a lot of people's situations aren't very ideal to be able to buy a console, especially one that's $400 or more at launch. But if you're giving people options, those options will at least stay in the minds of certain people that might not have the money to buy the most expensive version of either console. So again, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, and I'm pumped to see where things go with these models. All right, now in terms of something that I was, kind of, I wouldn't say disappointed by, but I expected Sony to give more details on, was the backwards compatibility of the PS5. That's been, it hasn't been a 100% question mark, but there's still many details that we don't know, you know, and I do feel that now is the time for Sony to really give details on that. Because when you look at the Xbox and what Microsoft is doing to the Xbox Series X, you know, they're giving a ton of details on what users can do when they buy the system. You know, they're telling users, you know, if you don't want to buy the Xbox Series X right now, then that's fine. We're still releasing Halo Infinite on the older Xbox consoles, but this game will look better on the Xbox Series X. You know, this will be the true experience that you'll want when you play Halo Infinite. And then also with the Xbox Series X, you know, what they're doing to backwards compatibility. They're making games, you know, they're not making old games just 4K, but they're also adding HDR. You know, we'll see how that HDR is, you know, since it's not a true HDR in terms of, you know, probably the way that the developer of the game will want the game to look, but it's a, you know, system-based feature that could add HDR onto older games. And one of the games that have been confirmed for that is Fusion Frenzy. So a 20-year-old game, pretty much, in 4K and HDR on the Xbox Series X. And there will be even more games that will fit that category as time progresses and Xbox and Microsoft give more details onto, you know, what games will have those features, what older games will have those features. But, you know, when you look at that and add in features like smart delivery, as well as the fact that you can use older Xbox controllers and accessories on the Xbox Series X too to save you money. You know, when you add that all together, it's like the Xbox Series X is looking far more user-friendly than the PS5 as of right now. You know, the PS5 is still a very appealing console, especially just due to the games alone. You know, the games that they showed during the conference were really, really good-looking games. But again, when you are thinking about the transition to the next generation of gaming, as of right now, Microsoft's plan for Xbox One users transferring over to the Xbox Series X just feels far more smoother and cohesive and locked in than the PS5. There's a lot of questions that I have about the PS4 to PS5 transition. And I have a PS4 Pro, and I'd like to know, you know, what games on my PS4 Pro will look better on the PS5. You know, I know that all my PS4 Pro games will work on the PS5, but which games will have enhancements and improvements, you know? And I do wish that Sony would, you know, talk about that more. And again, this isn't a big feature. The PS5 is going to do well regardless, you know, especially since it's just a PlayStation console. And, you know, the PlayStation brand is so huge worldwide that, you know, as long as the PS5 has the popular AAA titles, especially the popular AAA multi-plats, then the game, or I should say the console will do well regardless. But again, more people care about their content moving along with them to new devices, especially since so many devices that are entertainment based have those features, especially, you know, when you look at iOS devices, Apple devices, all those apps that you buy on your phone, you know, can move over to when you get the new iPhone or when you get the new iPad. And people expect that when it comes to consoles because, you know, again, these are devices releasing in 2020 and those features aren't bonuses anymore. Those features are considered to be standard tech features. So if, you know, Sony doesn't give details on those features soon, then I could see, you know, some people shifting over to the Xbox Series X in terms of buying that console first and then waiting for the PS5, you know, once the system gets a more cohesive feature set when it comes to being able to play older content. So we'll see how that goes. As of right now, I'd say that's the biggest thing for me that I want to see more about the PS5 is, you know, what plans does Sony have for users being able to transfer the old content to the PS5. You know, since as of right now, there's, you know, just a lot of gaps, and those gaps need to be filled in because it's June, and, you know, these consoles are going to come out very soon, you know, within these next 6 months. I'm expecting the consoles to come out either in late October or early November, you know, right in time for Black Friday. So again, you know, there's still a decent amount of time left, But I do feel that Sony needs to talk more about that, you know, especially as, you know, people are deciding what system to get. And, you know, once you set in stone a certain feature, then people will keep that feature in mind. You know, smart delivery, for example, for the Xbox Series X. You know, that's just a feature that has been on the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, you know, in terms of your older PS4 or Xbox One games being able to be enhanced for the 4K consoles, you know, and you don't have to buy those enhancements. You know, those enhancements are just added on automatically, and that's pretty much what smart delivery is. You know, smart delivery is, you know, Microsoft looking at your account, seeing what games you have, and then saying, okay, now that you're on the Xbox Series X, we're going to give you the best version of the game at no cost to you, and we'll deliver that straight to your console. You know, that's pretty much what it is. So it's not a real, you know, technological or hard to understand feature, but the fact that Microsoft has that branding on that feature makes that feature be stuck in the minds of the more casual gaming audience, you know, that might not be very tech savvy. So when they hear smart delivery, you know, they'll instantly think of the Xbox Series X, and, you know, that, I guess you could say, that wording is only being used by Microsoft. You know, Sony isn't using that. So when people hear that feature, they're not going to think of the PS5, they're going to think of the Xbox Series X, even if the PS5 has a similar feature or a similar process for bringing old content over to the console. So again, I do feel that Sony needs to talk more about that, and hopefully they will during this month of June. All right, so that's all I have to say about the event. It was a good event. It met my expectations. You know, it didn't go over them, but again, I would take meeting my expectations instead of, you know, being a huge flop. So that event made me very pumped for the PS5, and I'm just excited for these new consoles overall. This should be a pretty fun year when it comes to video gaming. And, you know, there's so many things going on in the world right now that I was, you know, really happy to just have something that I could, you know, be truly excited for, due to just how hectic this year has gone, and just how depressing this year has been too. You know, just having something to look forward to, even if it's something as pointless as a video game console, you know, that means a lot to me, since I'm a big gamer, and just, you know, being able to have fun and to do something that can get my mind off of what's going on, even if it's just temporary, is a really good thing. So I hope the same was true for you guys that are watching this right now. Sony has had a really good week. The Last of Us 2 reviews have come out, and the game has been getting a ton of 10s. Again, it's a very exciting time to be a gamer, and, you know, now that E3, you know, isn't happening, you know, we have so many announcements and so many conferences and blogs to watch and see on random days, that, you know, it does feel as if E3 has been stretched out to be a 2 to 3 month period of just gaming announcements, and it's a really good time for that to happen, since we're moving to a new generation of gaming. You know, it's not like this is happening during the middle of a generation, which causes, you know, things to get even messier. You know, there's a lot of developers that are still getting used to working from home, and just, you know, having their announcements be made via streaming video conferences. So, you know, just having people make that transition right now is probably ideal, instead of them having to make it, you know, shortly after the PS5 and the Xbox Series X launch. So again, hopefully you guys will be able to watch the future D-pad discourses, as I'll talk more about what's going on as we get closer to the launch of both consoles. And until then, I'll see you. All right, thanks again.